Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
And good Tuesday evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It's the 29th of November, and as always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information. For many of you, that's just bone-chilling cold. But for some of you, that's wind and cold, and we're going to talk about that. It's also cold and wet weather, which means heavy snow in parts of Southeast. You can get all that information anytime, updated with the very latest forecast at 800-472-0391. That is the Alaska Weather Information Line from the National Weather Service, no matter what part of Alaska you're in, whether it's the west coast, the north, the interior, southeast, or way down on Kodiak Island, maybe even Raspberry Island. That phone number should work for you. Weather.gov/Alaska, also a place to get your information online. And if all of that is confusing, send us an email. nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov is a place to find information and help from the TV desk. And if I can't help you, I'll make sure there's somebody that can and get your question answered and get you the information that you need. Here's a look at the hazardous weather information. We're going to start in southeast, and blizzard warnings also showing here in red. There's a number of things going on all the way across the north and eastern Gulf Coast. We're going to start down here across southeast, where we have high wind warnings for the southern parts of southeast. Those wind gusts are expected to stay up through the evening hours there, and because of that, we're expecting some winds to come up to probably 60-mile-an-hour gusts there across some of the southern inner channels. Could reach southeast winds sustained around 40 to 60 miles per hour. This is going to go for just a little while longer, until about 6 o'clock tonight. But until then, the wind's probably going to stay up across this region. Now, as you look up a little bit further north, this is a winter storm warning for the Klondike Highway area. And for the Klondike Highway itself, about 8 to 14 inches of snow is what we're expecting at this point. For Haines, it is going to be snowy there as well. As you get up toward the Haines Highway, as much as 12 to 18 inches could fall closer to White Pass. So we're talking about a lot of heavy and wet snow in this region. Now, just across the water around into Skagway, not only could it snow, but it's going to blow. And it looks like the high winds there could be possible until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Now, what you're seeing right now, or what you're feeling, maybe hearing outside, that's probably going to get worse through the evening and overnight hours. The wind should worsen as they go through the evening and into the early morning hours. That's probably when it will be the worst, overnight. So those gusts for you coming up from the south and east, 35 to about 45 sustained, but gusts to 60 miles per hour possible around the Skagway area. So snow in the region and wind coming into Skagway could reach those high wind warning levels. What that means is make sure things are moored and tied off really well. Make sure any loose things out in the yard are brought in, and if you haven't got things secure around the house, you've got that really cool signboard next to the door that's going to flap around all night. So just take that off, bring that inside. You know which one I'm talking about. Now, as we go around the horn a little bit more, up toward Thompson Canyon and around looks like the Valdez area up around the highway. You're still talking about blizzard conditions there, Keystone Canyon, I should say. You're looking at probably winds that are coming up to about 60 miles per hour once again, and that's going to limit visibility. Not a lot of snow expected, maybe 1 inch, but because of that and blowing so hard, it's going to drop visibility below a quarter mile, and that could last until at least 6, 7, even 9 o'clock tonight. So through the rest of the evening hours, a blizzard warning's in effect up around the Valdez region, up the highway there toward Keystone Canyon, and up toward the Thompson Pass region. Now out to the west, the yellow area. This is not snow, this is not precipitation, it's cold. It is that north and easterly wind that has been persistent and pushing that really severe cold across the interior out toward the west coast. Because of that, and the winds up to about 10 to 25 miles per hour. Wind chill values could drop as low as 30 to 45 below zero. That only matters because when you are exposed to that for any length of time, as you know, frostbite and hypothermia become pretty serious issues pretty quick. So make sure that if you're going outside, kids are bundled up, you're bundled up, cover your face, nose, ears, and toes. Everything goes. And with that northeasterly wind, again, wind chill advisory stays up until noon on Thursday. That's when at least we think it might start to get better. There's a chance, though, it's going to stay pretty cold for the rest of the week. Here is why. Low pressure out across the eastern Gulf has pretty deep core there, and you can see that's tracking to the north and northeast, riding up into western parts of Yukon already. The part that's spreading up and over the top of this is the big snow machine there. It's also dragging a lot of wind up into Skagway and Haines, and all that working to produce snow and produce wind for not only the northern parts of southeast, but certainly the southern inner channels there. That should get better as we get into the evening hours. It's also producing a good enough pressure gradient there across the Thompson Pass region that blizzard conditions are possible. On the back side of this is the wind that's moving in the opposite direction. It's descending south across the latitudes of Alaska, and with that comes the cold, pretty much due south out of some of the coldest regions of the planet right now. And with that and moving air across southwestern Alaska, we get that horrendous wind chill. So again, be careful out there, but it is still an active pattern. So we put this into motion. Watch the low pressure move off to the north and east. Behind it comes another system across the central and eastern Aleutians. With that, we expect some more wind, not the severity of what we saw just last week, but we do expect another wave of low pressure that will be capable of producing some occasional gusts at times, but nothing really substantial. This is a lot more of a garden variety system at this point than anything else. On the north side of this, though, is very dry, very cold weather, and temperatures across the interior have been well below zero. At noon around Fairbanks today, about 30 below. Oh, we're into wintertime now, if there was ever a question. Low pressure across the north and eastern Gulf, 963 millibars there. Here comes the front, banking right up against southeastern Alaska. And with that, we've got that really tight pressure gradient just pushing right up into the Lynn Canal and over Haines and Skagway and up the highway, producing snow and also producing wind on the back side of that, and producing that colder flow working out of the interior. The nation's icebox fully restocked at this point there. So right now the door is closed, but for many across South Central, we're wondering if that door could be open, and it will probably open up just a little bit more as we go through the rest of the week. Here's low pressure out west, only 1,002 millibars, no big deal, right? A little bit of light rainfall across the eastern Aleutians today and the chain, expecting the possibility that there could be showers, rain mixed with snow on the northern side. Now, will all of this get wet? Probably not, but from time to time, you're looking at some passing wet weather that will gradually ease up and improve. Out across southeastern Alaska, a few rain showers there. Low pressure starts to work its way back to the west a little bit. Here's the core, though, at 987 millibars. This is still tracking north and east. Behind this, we still have a lingering area of low pressure across Prince William Sound and the northern Gulf at 993 millibars. Out to the west, 970 millibars there across the central chain. The north side of that is just meeting up with a ton of cold and dry weather. So there will be some snow in this area here, and probably looking at some rain and snow closer to the chain. Most of the chain probably dealing with that transitional region into rain, and rain's mixed with snow, but not entirely snow, it looks like at this point. And across the north and west, another discontinuity in the weather here. We've got very cold, very dry, very stable air here. Out across the west, kind of a ripple in that, and we could see some snow showers for our friends watching in Shishmaref tonight, up around Kotzebue Sound and all the way up the Chukchi Coast. Some possibilities there for a few more flakes, and it sounds like you need some more of that. Out across the western Bering Sea, a 1,000 millibar low, really not capable of stirring up a tremendous amount of wind, but when it's that cold, any amount of moving air is just really uncomfortable, so do be careful out there, and it could be dangerous too. Out across southeast for Wednesday, periods of rain mixed with snow across a large part of the inner channels there. Rain showers closer to the coast, Sitka, all the way up toward Yakutat. And then you'll notice this low pressure system isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's going to help deepen the wave out across the western Gulf all the way out toward the Alaska Peninsula. That also strengthens that pressure gradient across the YK Delta in southwestern Alaska. What does that mean? That wind's going to keep moving. That means the air that's so cold is going to keep draining out toward southwestern Alaska. So that probably means a better chance for ice growth as far as temperature goes, but as long as that wind's up, that's going to slow that down, or at least make that a little bit harder to solidify. So Plan on more icy conditions and more cold, but we'll see how fast the ice grows there across southwest. Out across the central and eastern chain, periods of rain and rain mixed with snow. Snow showers continue through the Bering Strait, and high pressure anchors up around Eagle at 1,009 millibars there. And again, the wind will continue across southern parts of Alaska. As we get into Thursday, here is the new weather maker at 962 millibars now. Gone are those two waves here across the northern Gulf. They have now rejoined as one system at 962. And we get more wind across the north and eastern Gulf, more rain and more snow at higher terrain. That could mean Haines and Skagway again, up toward Yakutat and Prince William Sound. Notice what happens out across the west, though. We still have that tight pressure gradient across the interior and the central and eastern chain, but now we're still just opening that door to even more cold air, and we've pulled the door open a little bit wider to southern parts of Alaska. So keep that cold coming there in south central. If you don't have your big coat yet, now would be a good week to find that. Out across the central and eastern chain, periods of rain mixed with snow there across the Pribilofs. Snow showers will be possible all the way up across St. Lawrence Island and into the Bering Strait. The Chukchi Coast looking at snow showers, as well as parts of the eastern Beaufort Seacoast and the interior. Maybe a chance of light snow for you. Wow, that was a mouthful. Let's get on with temperatures. Here's how cold it was today in southeast. Not too bad. Mid-40s for many. Windy for southern and southeast, of course, and heavy wet snow for parts of northern southeast around Lynn Canal. Haines and sounded like school might have let out early today because of some of the snow. If that was you, well, congratulations. You'll probably have to make that up, but hey, it was fun. Got out for snow, right? Teens, 20s, and 30s around Prince William Sound. Valdez was holding on to 32, while everywhere else around Prince William Sound was in the teens and 20s today. Cordova only 27. Anchorage was a cold 9. I almost said miserable. It's not miserable. Not when you look up north and you see 25 below in Fairbanks. Now, I know some of you guys love that, so okay. But the Alaska Range here is doing its job, blocking that cold from descending southward. So we like the Alaska Range if you're in Anchorage. 15 below in Eagle. Fort Yukon was 27 below, 29 below around Anaktuvik Pass. It was 33 below around Bettles today. 18 below for Kaktovik, 17 below around Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse, only 3 below in Barrow. Atkasuk, you're 11 below. Kotzebue Sound temperatures anywhere from 5 to 15 below. Kotzebue was 14 below, 6 below in Nome, just about 10 below around Unalakleet. McGrath had 23 below. Let's see here. What else do we have? Well, let's see. Looks like folks around Lake Iliamna, 1 below. Bethel had almost 10 below late this afternoon. And then you get out over the water, and your temps are closer to freezing. Almost 32 around St. Paul and St. George. 20s and 30s for the Alaska Peninsula. Even Port Heiden was in the single digits. Kodiak at pleasant 33. 37 around Adak, and 38 in Shemya. Yeah, overnight low temperatures. Pretty cold, anywhere from 25 to 40 below across some parts of the central and northern interior of the North Slope. Single digits to mid 25 to about 35 below there, the southwest coast. 10 to 15 below, 6 below in Nome, southeast. Upper 30s, south central. Below 0, 23 in Kodiak, and the chain looking at temps in the 30s. The Pribilofs in the 20s and holding there tomorrow. Southwest coast, 5 to 10 below, 2 above in Nome, 7 below in Barrow, 6 below in Fort Yukon, mild day for you, 15 below in Fairbanks, South Central, teens and 20s, Kodiak 40, southeast, upper 30s to mid 40s. So quite the spread in Alaska, and we love it. Chukchi Coast looking at IFR conditions in the morning around the Alaska Peninsula and out across the western chain. Everywhere else, not too shabby. A little bit of MVFR in the usual places. The northern Gulf, though, starts to see some changes in the afternoon. IFR from just east of Cordova all the way out toward Yakutat and just about in toward Cross Sound. IFR conditions for the Chukchi Coast, and they'll continue for the central chain. MVFR for parts of Bristol Bay and around the Barren Islands north of Kodiak Island tomorrow. Here's your pass conditions. Anaktuvik Pass looking for some improvements. Heading for VFR there for Adigan Pass as well. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we expect to see marginal conditions develop. Otherwise, cold, dry air, and VFR for Rainy Pass, Windy Pass, Isabel Pass, Mentasta Pass. Can I get it for Tanita Pass? Not so much. MVFR conditions by the afternoon after a good start in the morning. And look for a clear start around Portage Pass, transitioning toward MVFR in the afternoon. And for Chilkoot and White Pass, expecting marginal conditions to set in the afternoon. This is no surprise with the temperatures we just saw on the map. Surface freezing line way south and over the Bering Sea. The 2,000-foot freezing line, though, nudging its way north of Juneau and across Adak and Atka tomorrow morning. Icing potential generally above 3,000 to 4,000 feet to hit the light to isolated moderate stuff across southwest, south central, and the eastern Gulf, including some parts of northern southeast and also around Eagle and down toward Northway above 1,000 feet for tomorrow. The jet stream, well, again, with that cold door open, you can see that northerly flow coming right across the northern Bering Sea and out of the Arctic, out across the northern Gulf, a reinforcing push from the storm track at 30,000 feet, 160 knots there coming across the northern Gulf. At 9,000 feet, southerlies across the Gulf and northerlies across the west. Wind speeds from 15 to 40 knots there across the eastern Gulf, anywhere from 40 to 50 knots from the south and southwest. Interior wind speeds from 15 to 40, also from the south. A little bit of a change here at 3,000 feet. Easterlies blowing down the Yukon and northeast off the southwest coast. Southwesterlies over the Gulf, 40 to 50 knots. A ridge of high pressure still keeping that southerly flow intact across the Gulf, but northerlies rule out across the Bering Sea, 25 to 35 there. Watch for some occasional chop across the northern Gulf as well as Cook Inlet tomorrow, generally below 6,000 feet. That eases up a little bit more around Kodiak. Around southwest, below 4,000 feet, there's some occasional moderate possible, as well as the central chain below 4,000 feet. That's a look at your aviation forecast. I'll be back with your marine weather here in just a few minutes. Stay tuned.
The third W is the who field. Who was it, or what was it, that actually took this observation? So when we take a look at the METAR that we're working through, we take a look for the field that's officially known as the modifier field. But it tells us who took the observation, so we'll use who to remember it. In this particular case, the who was Otto. Now there's three things that can be done with that field. It can say Otto like it does here. It can say COR for corrected, or it can just be blank. A totally automated observation with no human intervention will include the word Otto here coming right after the time. Only reports with Otto up here in the modifier field are totally automated. Now when it says Otto there, it will also, down in the remarks section, tell you the type of automated facility that took that observation, AO1 or AO2. AO2 in this particular case. Now suppose the observation is a corrected observation. If it's been corrected, the indicator will say COR for corrected, added after the time there. You don't know what's been corrected. All you know is that something in here was corrected, and since it takes a human to correct an observation, you can be assured that someone has looked at that particular weather. Now sometimes this field will be completely missing. If the field is missing, like it is on this report, you can be assured that a real live person had something to do with the observation or was at least signed on to the system. The observation may still have been taken, the basic information, by an automated system. The AO2 down here says so, but a human was involved because it does not say Otto up here at the beginning. Now, that human observer has added some information to this, which is very helpful to us. A human observer is able to add information about thunderstorms, information about the types of clouds that constitute the cloud layers, in this case CBs, and also some remarks down here, which we're going to look at later, about what kind of weather is occurring at that particular station. All automated reports will include either AO1 or AO2 in the remarks section to tell you what type of automated facility took it. If one of those is not there, you know that the observation is purely manual and not from an automated system at all. This observation had some human intervention, since there is no who or modifier up here in this field. The last of the four W's is wind, always an important consideration for an airplane. When we get to the METAR, we find that the wind information is clear and complete. It's transmitted as a 5 or a 6-digit group, in this case a 5-digit group. The first 3 digits of the group are always the direction from which the wind is blowing in relation to true north and given to the nearest 10 degrees. So here we have a wind blowing from 230 degrees true. Now the wind speed is reported in the next 2 or 3 digits. In this case, 2 digits, the wind speed is 13 knots. 3 digits will be used for winds in excess of 99 knots. And I, for one, will certainly not be flying in that case. Now, at the end, KT has been added to remind us that all wind speeds are reported in knots. So what we have here is a wind from 230 degrees true with a wind speed of 13 knots. Now, sometimes the wind direction will be replaced by a 3-letter group, VRB, standing for variable. And you know in that case, no rocket science required here, that the wind direction is variable. And that happens when the wind speed is 6 knots or less. So what we have in this case is variable at 5 knots. The wind direction is variable and the wind speed is 5 knots. Now, if the wind is variable over a 60-degree arc and the wind speed is above 6 knots, then the variable information will be reported as a separate group right after the wind group, like it is in this particular case. If you have a wind, like we do here, from 030 degrees true at a wind speed of 20 knots, but the wind direction is variable between 360 and 060, then you've got the variability shown here. It is variable between 360 degrees to 060 degrees. That puts the variability of the wind, which is very important information, right up there with the wind information where you see it immediately. Now, gusting winds are reported with a nice expanded format. For instance, in this particular case, we've got winds from 220 degrees true at a wind speed of 15 knots, gusting to 22 knots. The wind information is presented in an easy-to-interpret manner. Just as the letter Z makes it easy to locate the time of the observation, the units KT for knots makes locating the wind field a breeze.
Speaking of breeze, that cold air flowing off the coast is producing more ice in Norton Sound and around the YK Delta and into Bristol Bay. The white means that some of that is possibly shore fast, but the main ice pack there is concentrations over 60%. You can still see quite a hole there around the Chukchi Sea and also across a large chunk of the Bering. So a lot more work to be done there. And you can always follow along at weather.gov/Anchorage/ice. In southeast, winds are still going to be an issue for a large part of northern sections of southeast through the nighttime hours, including the Skagway area, under a high wind warning tonight. Wind should subside across the southern inner channels, 20 knots tomorrow from the south and east with 8-foot seas there, 40 knots from the south in the northern Lynn Canal with an 8-foot sea, and southwesterlies onshore 20 to 35 with seas anywhere from 16 to 20 feet. For Thursday, look for some of that to shift to more of a southerly direction on the outer coast. For the inside waters, 25 to 30 from the south and east. Look for 5 to as high as 9-foot seas northerlies in the northern Lynn Canal, 20 knots with a 4-foot sea. For the south central region, easterlies inside of Prince William Sound, 40 knots with seas as high as 8-foot seas there. As northern and western regions probably looking at 13 to 19-foot seas, 40 knots from the east and southeast. Southwesterlies on the east side of Kodiak Island, and north and northeasterlies coming down Cook Inlet, ramping up to 45 knots there south of Callaghan Island and west of the Barrens, with 13 to 14-foot seas possible tomorrow. Winds diminish in all areas for Thursday. A south and southeasterly flow in the northern and western Gulf, and north and northeasterlies inside of Cook Inlet, 10 knots on the northern side, 20 knots inside of Shelikof Strait with a 5-foot sea, and southeasterlies inside of Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay, you're looking at easterlies at 35 knots with an 11-foot sea tomorrow. Southwesterlies south of Sand Point and King Cove, 30 knots. Elsewhere, northeasterlies coming down the Bering Sea coast, and from Castle Cape to Chignik, 35 to 40 there with 15-foot seas in the Bering. 16-foot seas on Thursday with a northerly flow, and it's going to be cold stuff. 35 knots there, 25 to 40 knots along the Pacific coast with 6 to as high as 17-foot seas there on Thursday. For the Aleutians, northerly winds already setting up for the central and western chain, 35 to 40 knots all areas, 14 to as high as 24 feet from Adak to Kiska as we start our day tomorrow. Northerlies on the Pacific coast, but as you go up from Nikolsky to Unalaska, southwesterlies there hang on at 30 knots with a 24-foot sea. Look for northerlies to kick in out across the eastern chain for Thursday, 35 to 40 there, 17-foot seas in the east. Northwesterlies for the central and parts of the eastern chain with 15 to as high as 19-foot seas there as you get into the Pacific side, and westerlies for the western chain, 20 to 30 knots and 11 to 12-foot seas. For the west coast, northeasterlies flowing offshore, 35 to 40 knots, 9-foot seas south of Nunivak Island, southerlies over St. Lawrence Island, and northeasterlies from St. Matthew to the Pribilofs, seeing winds as high as 45 knots with a 16-foot sea. Northwesterlies start to set up from St. Lawrence Island to St. Matthew, 20 to 25. Northerlies out of the Kuskokwim Delta at 35, 13-foot seas for the Pribilofs with a 30-knot wind from the north on Thursday. And for the North Slope, south and easterly winds there for the Beaufort. Over the ice, 10 knots, and Chukchi Coast looking at 10 to 15 with seas small, 3 to 4 feet there on a 15-knot wind. For Thursday, light winds across the Beaufort and southerlies around Point Lay up to 15 knots. Southeasterlies out of Kotzebue Sound still showing sea heights for now with a 4-foot sea there with winds up to 10 knots. Recapping tonight's weather, active weather for southeast. Plan on some periods of heavy wet snow around the Haines Highway and the Klondike Highway. Conditions should gradually improve there, but the wind will just be ramping up for Skagway. Wind gusts there over 60 miles per hour possible there tonight. The worst is yet to come during the overnight hours before it lets up. For southeast, wind should be improving in the southern interchannels. Watch for a wind chill advisory to continue through noon on Thursday for the Kuskokwim Delta region, where wind chills could drop as low as 30 to 45 below thanks to continued wind out of the north and east, and colder weather for many in the south central regions and well below zero for the interior. Happy winter. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.